A literature survey on flipped classroom. Abstract: the flipped classroom employs asynchronous video lectures and practice problems as homework, and the valuable class time for in-class activities is spent with active learning techniques and one-on-one time with students. In this survey, the effectiveness of flipped classrooms in a wide range of subjects like engineering, education technology, mathematics and statistics, linear algebra, English language course calculus, psychology course, nursing education, higher education environment and computer programming is dealt with. The study found that flipped classrooms were more effective compared to traditional classrooms in all the above courses. Keywords: flipped classroom, traditional classroom, active learning survey. 1. Introduction. There have been several studies on the effectiveness of flipped classrooms in a wide range of subjects like engineering, education technology, mathematics and statistics, linear algebra, English language course calculus, psychology course, nursing education, higher education environment, faculty training program and computer programming. Engineering, social science, education technology, mathematics and statistics, linear algebra, English language course calculus, psychology course, nursing education, higher education environment and computer programming. Very less works was done in this area, which checks the effectiveness of flipped classroom in these above domains. Here the author studies the flipped classroom strategy employed in each area and reports the pros and cons found in the above areas. The study found that flipped classrooms were more effective compared to traditional classrooms in all the above areas. In future, more courses will switch to flipped classrooms because of the availability of internet at a cheaper rate. Since the flipped classrooms employ active learning techniques, it helped to develop exploratory and inventive skills in students, improved students' innovative consciousness and attitudes, etc. 11. Literature survey. Bishop and Verlager has conducted a comprehensive survey on flipped classrooms. Studies showed that flipped classrooms aroused a mixed response among the students. The overall response among the students was, however, positive. Students preferred teachers to take class rather than watching video lectures, but prefer interactive classroom activities over lectures. Evidences revealed that students' learning has considerably improved for the flipped version compared to the traditional one. However, one of the major pitfalls of flipped learning is that very little work is carried out investigating learning outcomes objectively. 1. Stephanie Gray Wilson redesigned a statistical course to a flipped classroom in order to increase student interest, engagement, and retention of the types of statistical knowledge and skills needed for students to be successful in their academic and professional careers. Quizzes were introduced regularly in the flipped classrooms in order for the students to read the textbook material. 48.2% of the students indicated that it was somewhat helpful or very helpful. 58% of the students agreed that reading the textbook was either somewhat helpful or very helpful in obtaining the learning objectives of the course. In addition to the textbooks, online resources form Khan Academy, www.khanacademy.org, were provided. 41% of the students indicated that they found the site either somewhat helpful or very helpful in obtaining the learning objectives of the course. A learning group was created among the students for forming a support network within the class. This increased interaction among students before and after the class. Group homeworks were also provided so that students work with their learning groups to check answers during class on the day of the assignment is due. During discussion of homework, the instructor was available to guide the students on their answers. Even though there was overall improvement in students' grade, some students responded that the lack of lecture as a problem because they have to teach themselves an entire chapter of statistics. However, the changes imparted created a positive impact on students' attitude towards the class, and it also reported a huge improvement in students' performance. 11. Diane Billings flipped lectures and discussions in nursing education by promoting more meaningful interactions between learners and educators. In a flipped classroom, the task of memorizing facts is replaced with tasks applying in a real-world clinical situation. Students work individually or in groups to solve clinical cases and develop care plans, which results in individualized learning, ample feedback and ongoing assessment of learning outcomes. In a flipped classroom, learners can choose from a variety of pre-class learning resources such as pre-recorded lectures and reading assignments on the basis of their learning style. Using the resources before the class help the students to read or listen to the course material several times before applying it in the classroom. For some students, the new role of active and engaged learner may be challenging, and they may resist the need to spend more time preparing for class. So, the educator who used a flipped classroom must convince the learners the purpose, benefits, and expected outcomes of the flipped classroom. Evidence have shown that flipping the classroom is an effective strategy for helping learners to better connect learned concepts to clinical practice and for preparing them for clinical experiences. Research shows that there is a considerable improvement in exam scores for students who employs flipped classroom. But students' satisfaction was less because flipped classroom requires more work compared with the traditional approach. 12. Harala et al. Introduced programming courses in a flipped method of learning. The results showed that flipped classroom model found to be more efficient than the traditional classroom. Since the students are familiar with the basics before arriving to the class, collaborative methods like peer learning and peer teaching, where students are active audience in teaching, took place. The learning activities outside classroom are done with reading programming literature and watching videos, and the class is controlled with quizzes that present questions in the weekly changing topic. The major advantage of flipped classroom is that students can learn at their own pace and teachers can concentrate on actual problems instead of repeating the basics in the classroom, and no costly lecturing is needed. At the end, it has shown that students' learning has improved too. Xiaoting Hung examined the effects of flipping the classroom for English language learning course. The results showed that flipped classroom showed significant improvement in student performance compared to the traditional one. The results also showed that there is a positive effect on students' learning attitudes. The flipped model identified 4 major pillars of flip, namely, flexible environment, learning culture, intentional content, and professional educator. The first pillar suggests that students can decide where, when, and how they view the material. In language learning, the flexibility of accessing the focal material or linguistic input anywhere, anytime, and at own paces is a practical approach to lowering the anxiety and frustration of learners. The second pillar suggested a paradigm shift in responsibility from teachers to learners, resulting in a student-centered learning culture. Another important consideration in flipped classrooms is the use of intentional content to foster student learning in pre-class and in-class activities, as represented by the third pillar of the flipped classroom learning model. The fourth pillar specifies the teacher's skill in controlling the classes. The teacher is empowered with knowledge, skills, and autonomy. Teacher can reconstruct their way of thinking and teaching in response to the changing demands of the teaching profession. 3. Gregory S. Maysal et al. Conducted inverted classroom in a control systems course in the Department of Mechanical Engineering at Seattle University, USA. The 2-year course was designed in such a way that the first year was taught using traditional classroom, whereas the second year was taught using inverted classroom. The study revealed that the content coverage in the inverted classroom were much more compared to the traditional classroom. Students participating in the inverted classroom performed as well or better on comparable quiz and exam questions and on open-ended design problems. Since the inverted classroom was new to the students, they struggled initially with the new format but adapted quickly and found the inverted classroom format to be satisfactory and effective. 4. Mikhail Kronyard et al. Replaced traditional lecture-based teaching in calculus with a flipped classroom approach. The study found that the failure rate was less and highest grade increased more in the flipped classroom compared to the lecture group, indicating that the intervention was beneficial for low as well as high-performing students. A calculus baseline test was conducted which indicated a higher gain in the flipped classroom compared to the lecture group. The engagement survey showed that students felt more engaged in the flipped group. In the flipped classrooms, due to active learning techniques, students felt that teachers care more about their learning, take their questions more seriously, and they received more support. The social aspects of peer discussions in the teacher-based sessions of flipped classrooms also seem to improve student learning. 5. Heather D. Hussey et al. Flipped a psychology course. Flipping the classroom is a solution for problems like lack of student engagement during class, passive learning through lectures, and ineffective lecturers. Research shows that students engaged in the flipped course design enjoy or prefer the course structure, regardless of actual learning outcomes. Students in the flipped course academically outperformed students in the traditional course. Learning takes place more in the flipped course compared with the traditional course. Faculties who employed flipped classrooms found that they are more enjoyable to teach, student involvement was high, one-to-one interaction with the students was also high and found greater enjoyment in the interactions. 6. Mike Mavromichalis and Violetta Holmes flipped a module of the Manufacturing Technology and Practical Workshop-based work course in Engineering and Technology Studies. PowerPoint presentations, detailed notes, audio-visual materials including YouTube videos were provided to watch and study as part of pre-class activity, and the in-class activity are devoted to exercises, projects, and discussion. The objective of the study was to examine whether the flipped classroom approach can enhance the learning experience of the students through better engagement with the students compared with the traditional classrooms. Feedback questionnaires was given to hundreds of students, and the level of student participation and level of success has been prepared by peer observation. The observations showed that there was significant improvement in learning experience, and the results of the course outcomes has improved. 7. Manoj Kumar P taught programming in Java to the underachievers using the flipped approach and the high achievers using traditional approach. They examined how the underachievers performed in comparison with the high achievers after undergoing flipped classroom sessions. At the end of the sessions, the results showed that low achievers performed at par with the high achievers of the traditional classroom. Traditional classrooms consists of lecturing as the in-class activity and homework as the out-class activity, whereas the flipped classrooms were equipped with watching videos as the out-class activity, and the major in-class activity was think, pair, share. In the light of this study, it can be concluded that flipped classrooms are a good method to teach underachievers, specifically for courses like programming which require more scaffolding. 8. B. Schmidt introduced flipped classroom in a first semester engineering dynamics course. Here the video lectures, which are the pre-class activities, are replaced with pencasts. Pencasts are used to record handwritten notes in real time along with the instructor's vocal explanation. At the lectures, the students were asked to vote by using clickers, and the results of the voting were used to stimulate peer discussion. After the peer discussion, the students were asked to vote again on the same questions. The second vote's results were much improved because it was after the peer discussions. A student or a teacher explained the solution to the students. The remaining part of the lecture was given in a traditional format with lots of textbook exercises to work as homework, and the answers to these exercises were uploaded in the course homepage. One class was taught by using traditional method, while the other class was taught by the method described above by the same teacher. The results showed that the learning outcome for flipped classroom was high for the Engineering Dynamics course. 9. SEETAL introduced flipped classroom in a linear algebra course. Pre-class video lectures were sent to the students, and students were asked to send the points he/she is unable to pick up before the class. This helped the teacher to focus on the weaker sections of the class and enable the teacher to bring out best possible solutions to clarify the concepts. The computational experiments were designed in such a way as to engage participation of learners in the classroom. As a result of flipped classrooms, active learning took place and learning was more effective. 10. 111 Conclusion. In a traditional classroom, learners can easily forget what is taught 15 minutes back, and there is no way to rewind it for rehearing. In flipped classrooms, pre-class video lectures are eternal in nature. They can be viewed at any number of times at their own pace and time. In this survey, the effectiveness of flipped classrooms in a variety of subjects like engineering, education technology, mathematics and statistics, linear algebra, English language course, calculus, psychology course, nursing education, higher education environment and computer programming is dealt with. The study analyzed the outcome of employing flipped classrooms in each of these above courses. In all the above course, employing flipped classrooms was found to be effective and the students performed satisfactorily.